All right, guys, welcome back from that break. So now I'm going to begin with the auditable clauses. Now the first one is 4 point. So it's four, right? The first one is four, and that talks about the context of the organization. Now there are sub clauses and what I call sub clauses under these under clause four. So clause four, first of all, is what? It's about the context of the organization. Let's put that over here. Right, this one. Right. Now there are sub clauses under clause four. 4.1 talks about understanding the organization and its context. Point two talks about understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties. 4.3 talks about determining the scope of the QMS. 4.4 goes on about the QMS and its processes. So we are going to take a look at each of these clauses and exactly what they mean and exactly what they require from an organization on their road to being certified by the standard. Good. So to begin, we talk about 4.1, understanding the organization and its context. Here it says that the organization, first of all, shall, right? Now, whenever you see the word shall, right? Whenever you see the word shall, here, you see here as well. It means it's necessary, it's a requirement. The standard is requiring the organization to do as it is stating. Good. So the organization shall determine external and internal issues that are relevant to its purpose and its strategic direction, and that affect its ability to achieve the intended results of its quality management system. The organization shall monitor and review information about these external and internal issues. Let's hold on and break that down. Firstly, remember, anywhere we see shall means what? It's a requirement. Now, the organization shall determine external and internal issues. What is it saying? This is saying that if you want to do business, you want to meet and exceed the needs of your customers and other stakeholders that you have. First of all, you must sit down and ask yourself this question: what are the what factors? What are the issues that are important to me achieving my purpose? What are the issues that will affect my strategic direction? What are the issues that impact me depending on where I want to go and what I want to achieve? What are the issues that affect my ability to achieve my intended goals? No, of the QMS. And remember, I said the QMS is what the organization uses to what control and direct itself with regards to quality, right? Good. So, what are the things that are affecting three things? First of all, what are the external and internal issues that are relevant to one second? What are the external right and internal things, external and internal issues that are what the keyword here is what relevant to what the purpose, strategic direction. That's that's the first one. There are two, right? And then he said what? What are these external and internal issues that also affect the ability of the system I'm using in order to achieve said goal? Good. That's the first thing 4.1 requires the organization to do. The second thing is what? The organization shall monitor and review information about these external and internal issues, right? Good. So not only should they determine, that is what, to identify the external and internal issues, but the organization must also go further to monitor and review information about these external and internal issues. Good. So whenever we see notes in a chemist, whenever you see notes anywhere, notes is simply telling, it's trying to explain certain things, trying to break it down further, give you more information on certain things. So note one, first of all, says what? Issues can include positive and negative factors, right? This one, or conditions or consideration, right? So the issues we are talking about over here could be positive, they could be negative. Note two says what? Now, understanding the external context can be facilitated by considering issues arising from what? Legal, technological, competitive, market, cultural, social, and economic environment. whether international, national, regional, or local. Good. So that is going. So with that one is with note two. First of all, identifies the sources of external issues. Note 3 goes on to complement that, and note 3 goes on to what? Identify the internal context, sorry, the internal sources of, well, it goes to identify the sources of internal issues. Sorry about that. Now, so note 3 says what? Understanding the internal context can be facilitated by what? Considering issues related to what? Values, culture, knowledge, and performance of the organization. So that is 4.1, right? Understanding the organization and what? Its context. Understanding the organization in its context. That's what this talks about. Good. So you need to be able to identify and grab certain keywords. So for 4.1, some of the keywords include what? Determine external and internal issues, which are what? Relevant to what? Three things: purpose, strategic direction, and ability of the QMS to achieve its internal goal. Now the organization shall what? Monitor and review. So basically, what helps me is three keywords. Certain keywords here: determine, monitor, and review. Determine, monitor, so shall determine, shall monitor and review. So basically, as we go down the line, you see that there are certain tricks and tips that you can use here and there. So for understanding the organization in this context, we're talking about issues. The issues are external and internal. First, the organization has to what? Identify issues that are going to affect it, both external and internally, that are going to affect its ability to succeed. You can put it that way. They also have to what? Monitor and review information about such issues or about said issues. Good. Now notes one, two, and three simply what? Break down what you said. And it's first of all, note one defines what an issue is. Notes two and three identify the sources of what? External and internal information. Thank you. Let's move on. Good. So 4.2 goes further, and 4.2 now is telling about understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties. So, due to their effect or potential effect on organizations' ability to consistently provide products and services that meet customer and applicable state, so applicable legal requirements, the organization shall determine. So, another trick that we use here as well. You see that with this course TQM, we must memorize these clauses. And to memorize these clauses means primarily that we have to eliminate anything that is going to be extra information. So things that are gonna make you just add English, you don't include them. That's why I think that you should always identify the keyword. And for you to know that this keyword shall is very important when I'm discussing about it. Shall is very, very important. So anytime you see the word shall somewhere, what follows is usually what you have to pay attention to. You see? So it went on to speak about all these things due to blah 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 blah. Then it gives a comma over here, right? It says what? The organization shall determine A, interested parties that are relevant to the QMS. B, the requirements of these interested parties that are relevant to the QMS. So basically, the point I'm making is that what? When you are asked if you need to refer to clause 4.2, your mind should immediately go to what? The organization shall determine A and B. That is where the thing is, right? Let's not waste time and put this trying to remember certain things. Good. That's by the way. Where do we see another keyword, another shall here? Right, see another shall right here. So the organization shall monitor and review information about these interested parties and their relevant requirements. Right. So basically speaking, if let's break this down, this 4.2 down, interested parties, another word you can use for that is what? Stakeholders, right? So stakeholders are people who are directly or indirectly affected by what? The actions or operations of a company. Good. Let's put a pin in that. So it's telling us out as part of understanding the context of the organization. 4.2 requires that the organization first what? Determine the interested parties that are relevant to the QMS. B, the requirement that these interested parties have, which are also relevant to the QMS. So basically speaking, who are we affecting, or who will be affected by the QMS, or who has an interest or a stake in the QMS? Good. When we identify these people, the next thing we do is that we identify what they want from the QMS. From the QMS. What exactly is it that they want from the QMS? That's of course another the first part, right? Now the second part is what? After we have identified this information, knowing who our interested parties are, and knowing what their requirements that they have of the QMS, we now what monitor and review information about these parties and their relevant requirements. That's 4.2 in a nutshell. Moving on to 4.3. 4.3 is teaching us something else, and it says what? 4.3 says what? Determining the scope of the quality management system. From the beginning, we already know that when we talk about scope is something else on its own. So the organization shall what? Determine the boundaries and applicability of the QMS to establish its scope. You see, so when we are determining the scope, the organization shall a so when the definite when determining the scope, the organization shall consider a external and internal issues referred to in what 4.1. So these are the normative references that we're talking about in under the non-auditable clauses, right? So saying that any clause here in reference to is this, right, that one. So this 4.1, 4.2 that I seen, that is what is referring to, right? So basically speaking, it's telling us that we have under the context of the organization, we started from 4.1. 4.1 said what? We have to understand the context of our organization. We have to know the internal and external issues which are going to affect us. We also have to identify the interested parties, right, and their interest, their relevant interest to the QMS. Now, when you're about to determine our and the scope of our QMS, you say what? The organization shall well, always remember, please. The organization shall determine what the boundaries and applicability of the QMS to establish its scope. Right. Good. So these things would determine and would depend on what a the external and internal issues which we are supposed to identify or determine in 4.1. It will also rely on the requirements of the relevant interested parties referred to in what 4.2. See the product and services of the organization. So these three basic things. With things like this, ladies and gentlemen, is compulsory that you remember. You have to keep it in your head, right? That's one thing. Let's keep them. This stuff. You have to just keep them. There's no two ways about this. All right, good. So, see, a further goes, he said what the organization shall apply. So you see another keyword here again, shall. Let's be taking note of those keywords. So the organization shall apply all the requirements of this international standard if they are applicable within the determined scope of its QMS. Right. So basically speaking, you don't you don't just go and copy someone's way of doing things. You have to sit down and ask yourself, what are the external internal issues that I have? What products and services am I offering? Who are those people who are interested in my QMS? And that is what is going to shape the scope of your QMS, right? That's what's going to shape exactly what your QMS is going to be handling, right? Exactly, like your perspective of quality, right? It's not something that is generic that everybody's system has the same features. Good. Now, the scope of the organization's QMS shall, I don't know, shall be available and be maintained as documented information, right? The scope shall state the types of products and services covered and provide justification for any requirement of this standard that the organization determines is not applicable to the scope of its quality management system. Straight away, you notice that there are also keywords here. There's shall here. There's another shall where we shall. Right. So it's another shall here. Very good. So the first one is what the organization shall, well, the scope of the organization's quality management system shall be available and maintained as documented information. So that's the first thing, right? So apparently 4.3 Three is telling us out all the requirements of this standard, if applicable within the determined scope of the QMS. So any of the requirements that can be applied on the QMS should be applied, right? So for instance, what this standard is saying is that you hold on, right? It says that the scope, I'm reading from this one. The scope shall state the types of products and services covered and provide justification for any requirement of this standard that the organization determines is not applicable to the scope of its QMS. Right. So in the course of the organization building their QMS and meeting the requirements of this standard, should they choose at any point that, oh, maybe with clause 7, 7.1.5.2, we don't like, um, given the nature of our business, we won't be abiding by the requirements of that clause. Well, the standard says out, fine, if that's the case, you may choose, you may opt for that. However, you have to what explain. You will explain that you have to explain why that clause is not applicable, right? Good. So what we take from this is out from this side is, first of all, the scope of the QMS that the organization is using, it that it shall be available and maintain as what documented information. That's one. Now, saying that this scope that I'm talking about should state the types of products and services that are covered and provide justification for any requirements in this standard, in this standard, that right, that the organization determines it's not applicable to the scope of its QMS. Good. Sure, you understand that, don't you? Now, conformity to this international standard may only be explained, may only be claimed if the requirements determined as not being applicable do not affect the organization's ability or responsibility to ensure the conformity of its products and services and the enhancement of customer satisfaction. Right? Breaking this down, we have what? Conformity to this standard may only be claimed if the requirements determined as not being applicable do not affect the right. So basically speaking, the organization can is allowed by the standard to say that, oh, we are going to apply this and so requirement, as long as they not applying themselves to that requirement does not affect the organization's ability or its responsibility to make sure that what its products and services conform to the customer's expectation and also what enhance the satisfaction of the customer. So that's the condition. Now what you may choose to forego any of these requirements. First of all, if you explain and document the information as to why the firm didn't meet that requirement, and two, as long as there are requirements that you have not met will not affect your ability to what conform to the expectations of the customer and also not hinder your ability to enhance the satisfaction of the customer. So that's 4.3 in a nutshell. 4.4 now talks about the quality management system and its processes, right? So basically speaking, we start from the beginning. We start from the beginning. We have an organization, we are doing business. We want to satisfy our customers and make sure that our customers get the best of the best. What do we do? First, we talk about the context of the organization. And another, I would say that the first thing is that what the organization has to what I believe it was understand the organization in this context. That's the first thing. That's why you have the what external and internal issues. Determine them and then what they can be positive, they can be negative. Then when they move to the interested parties, who are they? That was 4.2. Who are the interested parties, and what exactly are those relevant interests that they have, or those relevant requirements that they have in the QMS? The third one is what the scope of the QMS. So now, after we know all these things, let's sit down and set the scope of our QMS and know what we are going to go according to. After we have set the scope of the QMS, now we come down to business and what work on the QMS. So 4.4 now drives the point to myself out quality management system and its processes. So 4.4.1 says out the organization. What's the magic word? Shall the magic word is what? Hey, what am I saying? The magic word, hey, calm down. The magic word is shall. All right. Sorry about that. Shall. So the organization shall establish, implement, maintain, and continually improve a QMS, including the processes needed and their interactions. Now, in accordance with the requirements of this international standard, right? So, basically speaking, you have your scope, you have your fundamental information that you need to start with. So now establish the QMS. You implement it, you maintain it, and you make sure you continually improve the QMS. That's where the process based approach comes in. The PDCA cycle: plan, do, check, and act. Right. So now they have to include the processes needed and their interactions, how the processes interact with each other, right? When you talk about the process approach, that's where you have what inputs and outgoing value addition to have output, right? So how do the processes work together for us to convert our inputs to output, right? In accordance to the requirements of this standard. So still, we are going according to the standard, basically. So this is the first shell. We saw the first shell over here. The second shell is over here. The second shall is turned out. The organization shall determine the processes needed for the QMS and their application throughout the organization. Right. So this organization must also what identify or determine the processes that they will need for the QMS and how those processes will be applied throughout the entire organization. Not only are they going to do that, but they shall also a right? So all these things are requirement from the A to the G. They are requirements. So what? The organization shall determine. So and shall. So let me point out. So and shall. This is the first shall. The first one shall out processes needed for QMS and their application. So all processes that the QMS need and how are you going to apply them? And and shall. Sorry for the repetition, but I have to follow my train of thought to do it well. So A, determine the inputs required and the outputs expected from these processes. Right, first thing. B, determine the sequence and interaction of these processes. C, determine and apply critical criteria and methods, right, including what monitoring, measurements, and related performance indicators needed to ensure the effective operation and control of these processes. Look, basically speaking, you have to memorize a few of them. I think five at least. Five, it should be in your head, if not all, right? So I no, that's not all. So 4.4.2 is out to the extent necessary, right? To the extent necessary, the organization shall a maintain documented information to support the operation of its processes, right? B, retain documented information to have confidence that the processes are being carried out as planned. So this is right, reason right. So one of the issues you see under clause 4 is that you have to maintain your documentation. So from the beginning for 4.2, 4.3, that one was talking about you monitoring and reviewing information about your interested parties and their requirements, and also what about your internal and external issues. When you come down to to 4.3 and then this 4.4, these ones are more about what you maintaining documented information. You documenting information, right? So to the extent excuse me, to the extent necessary, the organization shall A, maintain documented information to support the operations of its processes. B, retain documented information to have confidence that the processes are being carried out as planned. All right.